Welcome to another episode of Coast to Coast Sports. I am your host, Matty Ice Raridan. That is my co-host over there, the smoking gator himself, David Street. For those of
What up?
you who have not watched the show before, we are all things Oregon Ducks, all things Florida Gators, and everything in between. If you have watched the show, then you know exactly what we are about. We are very dedicated, we are loyal, we are diehard fans of our schools, just as you are as well. So I want to start this show. Actually, we had a, a big weekend in college football, and it's that time of year. It's crunch time when it comes to recruits for the following year and for the years to come. And this was a very big weekend for Oregon against Colorado on the recruiting trail because it was such a big primetime matchup game that was televised everywhere. And if you did not hear, they pulled in about a little over 10 million viewers just for that game alone. So, very big when it comes to recruiting. And even though Florida played Charlotte, which may not seem like a very high tier level game, it's still a very high impact game, not only on the implications for Florida and SEC, but on the recruiting trail. So I'm actually going to start with David here. If he could kind of go over with what's going on with Florida Gators, what's going on with their recruiting for next year and for the years after.
Yes, Matty. So for those of you who are just tuning in, if you missed our show last Wednesday, right now the Gators have the third ranked recruiting class per 24/7 Sports. So we got a lot of good players coming in, and there's other guys that we're looking at as well, including a potential flip target, by the way, in Charles Lester III, who is currently an FSU commit. But he's now visited UF a total of 6 times. And what's interesting about this, Matty, is that we didn't even make Lester's Final Four. You know, when he released his Final Four schools and then eventually committed to FSU. But according to On Three's Corey Bender, who reports for the Gators for On Three, a huge reason why we have a good shot with Leicester is because of secondary coach Corey Raymond, who, of course, Billy Napier poached away from LSU, and that was considered to be a massive, massive win for Napier. And listen, Corey Raymond's resume speaks for itself, but I'll just read it off some just so you get an idea of who this guy is and how good he is. Players that Raymond has coached at LSU before include Tre'Davious White, Jamal Adams, Tyrann Mathieu, aka Honey Badger, and Derek Stingley Jr. So pretty good list of players that he's got there, and also just right now, Florida's play overall hasn't been perfect. It certainly hasn't been horrible because at the end of the day, we are 3-1, including a huge win over Tennessee. But we're not playing perfectly. But obviously, our defensive play is standing out. And if you're a Florida fan, you have to think that the way that the defense is playing right now under Austin Armstrong gives us a big confidence boost in flipping Leicester and flipping other potential recruits out there. But as for our current recruits, I just want to go over some stats from a few of our 2024 pledges. So, edge player Jamonte Waller on the season has 33 total tackles, 11 tackles for loss, 6 sacks, 15 quarterback hurries, and he has caused a fumble as well. Safety Xavier Tholsamy, and I believe that is how you pronounce his surname. So if I mispronounced it, my apologies. But Tholsamy for the season has a total of 21 tackles, 5 deflected passes, and 2 forced fumbles. And of course, as I've talked about before, the crown jewel of the 2024 Gator class is quarterback DJ Lagway. His high school, Willis High School, by the way, of Texas, is now 5-0. And for the season, Lagway is completing 73% of his passes, and he's got 1,592 passing yards, 22 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. And he's also been very effective in the run game as well. He's got 248 rushing yards and six scores on the ground. And you know the way that Billy Napier's offensive system runs is that it requires a quarterback who can help you in the run game. And even though DJ Lagway is usually normally classified as a pro style quarterback, he has obviously shown that ability to use his legs as well. And I talk about Billy Napier's offensive system requiring a quarterback who can help him in the run game, and that's not to take anything away from Graham Mertz. And again, as I've reiterated many times on our show, Graham Mertz has been very solid for us. He has certainly not been a hindrance in any way. But what I'm trying to say is that I don't think we're going to win a championship, a national championship with Graham Mertz, and I don't think Billy Napier ever expected that. I think Billy Napier, no, not I think. I know that Billy Napier expects Lagway to be the guy. Lagway is going to be that guy who helps jumpstart the Gators back into greatness. And right now, Graham Mertz is just simply holding down the fort. But again, Mertz has performed admirably, so I don't want to take anything away from him. And then, of course, other major targets that we're looking at right now are defensive lineman LJ McCray and safety Zay Mincy. And according to On3, and by the way, I do want to make it very clear that I think anybody who follows me on Twitter knows that my feelings about On3 are pretty well known. I'm not going to hide that. But at the same time, they are regarded as one of the top national recruiting services, and so I do respect that. So according to those guys, with McCray, we've got about a 38% chance to land him. Next closest odds is Georgia at about 24%, and obviously, anytime Georgia's a threat, that's you always got to worry about them. And we got a 66% chance to land Mincy. And those are, by the way, Matty, those are both the highest odds for those players.
Yeah, I mean those are good odds, and I personally do know as far as your feelings go with On3, but they do provide as pretty accurate content when it comes to that. They could at least say they're not Big Game Boomer, who's your other favorite, but um,
Shout out to BB or BGB.
yes. So, but yeah, On3, they are a very trusted app now and website that I occasionally will go to get numbers. But as I was saying earlier, this was a big weekend that passed with Oregon Ducks when it came to viewerships because they did play Colorado on ABC. And we got some huge news actually on the 23rd. And if you're an Oregon Ducks fan, you know the 23rd was also Saturday, the day we beat Colorado. And that big news was we got a commitment for the 2026 class. So this is a couple years out. Uh, Tony Cumberland, who's a very, very high 4-star recruit. He's a defensive lineman out of Desert Mountain High School in Scottsdale, Arizona. He's a big dude. He's only a sophomore right now in high school. Like I said, 2026 class, but he's 6'5", 250. I mean, that's a sophomore in high school. Here, you're talking about a 16-year-old that stands at 6'5", 250, and that's a giant. That's a 16-year-old. So Tony Cumberland, very big commit that we got this Saturday on the 23rd of all days when we laid the smack it down on Colorado. Uh, Before that, I've mentioned in some of our shows prior, that is running back Jason Brown out of Washington. He is a very, very high recruit that we have kept our eyes on for a while now. He had recently labeled his final three schools as us, Washington, and Michigan State. And if you have not heard, today Michigan State officially fired their head coach, Mel Tucker. So things aren't looking good as far as Michigan State. I'm sure the recruiting trail's a little quiet right now for them. But Jason Brown was in attendance for the Oregon Colorado game. So I really like hearing that and being able for him to see that game, but to see how Oregon is producing, especially with the run game. And we're averaging, I want to say, 240 rush yards a game, somewhere around there, 230, 240. So Oregon likes to use their running backs. They like to use their legs. So Jason Brown, hopefully he got that message. He sees what we're able to do. But lastly, I want to talk about Sion Lalea the third. He's the number one JUCO defensive back right now. And on his personal Instagram, he posted on October 8th, he will be live streaming his commitment on which school he'll be choosing. He has now officially labeled his three schools as Oregon, USC, and Miami. And lately, USC has not been known for their defense, and I know Oregon usually isn't either. But Oregon has stepped up their game on their defense, and it's showing. It's showing a lot, and they are getting recruits actually all over the place when it comes to defensive backs and their defense. So Dan Lanning came in. He's changed the culture for the good, and it's crazy to me as an Oregon Ducks fan to see all these defensive backs flocking to Eugene. So I love hearing that. But on three as well, I did use them as a reference. They give actually the Ducks an 83% chance to get Lalea. So I'm really, really liking that. They have been, on three has been very productive, and they've been very reliable when it comes to their numbers. But at the end of the day, it's his choice. So I do hope he chooses the Ducks. And last episode, I talked about Kyrie Jackson, who stands at 6'3", has a 78-inch wingspan, and I used him as actually a comparison to Sauce Gardner. Well, Lalea stands at 6'4" with a 79-inch wingspan. So we're starting to see a trend there. And if you've seen his junior college tape, his film, he plays just like him. So that gives me hope, that excitement for our defense, that we're continuing this trend now that Dan Lanning's here. Though my only worry actually is Miami. Mario Cristobal is one hell of a recruiter. He was for us, and he's already started that trend with Miami. So that is something that does worry me. I know they've given us an 83% chance, but those are just numbers. When it comes down to it, who's going to be more personable, who's going to offer the most, the best, and going to give them a chance to also play possibly for a national championship team. And I do feel like we are in that direction, but so is USC. And I think Miami is going to be there here soon. So those are my players that I'm not only keeping an eye on, but we do have one big commitment, and that is Tony Cumberland.
Yeah, and you're not lying about your defense, by the way. In fact, you guys are 11th in total defense. So when we say that Dan Lanning is changing the landscape in Oregon, we literally mean it. You know, because before you guys were mainly known for your speed and offense, and I tweeted about this the other day. It's not that you guys have lost it. I mean, I think you guys are still one of the highest scoring teams in the country. But you are also now becoming more and more known for your punishing defense. And I want to ask a question about Dan Lanning real quick before we move on to the next topic. I'm sure you've heard, and I'm naturally probably worries you that there's a lot of smoke about Lanning possibly going to Alabama. How much does that worry you?
It doesn't. I mean, how many coaches have we heard over the last couple of years is going to be Nick Saban's replacement? Dabo Sweeney is one of them. And look at him. Look at this Clemson team right now. So you would think maybe for sure he'd want to get out. I don't know who's going to be the replacement for Nick Saban, but they're going to do their due diligence. And don't get me wrong, Dan Lanning he'd be a perfect fit, but it's all shoulda, coulda, wouldas, or what ifs right now. So I can't sit here worrying about that. I hope that Dan Lanning has found his home in Eugene with the Ducks, but until then, we just got to keep doing what we're doing. So I think he is the right guy for the head coach job here, just as he would at Alabama. But I think right now it just makes sense to continue to build this foundation at Eugene. So I hope he does continue to do that.
Roger that.
Yeah. So at this point in the show, if you tuned in last Wednesday, you'll know exactly what we are about to do. If you did not, and this is new to you, I'm going to explain. So if you can't tell already, Smoking Gator over there is a diehard Florida Gator fan, and I am a
Yeah,
diehard.
I just like to wear this at, just because it's comfortable.
Yes, F for fun. So, but I am a diehard Oregon Ducks fan. So we like to choose, kind of go off the board here, an NFL player that attended our schools for college, and we like to choose who had the best week, who had the best game. And I'll go ahead and actually start with mine. My player of the week, who attended the University of Oregon, who is now in the NFL, is none other than Justin Herbert. Surprise, surprise, but he put up some massive numbers this week against the Minnesota Vikings. Herbert was 40 for 47 with 405 yards and 3 touchdowns with 0 interceptions. Yes, those are impressive numbers, but I'm about to take a deep dive into this. He was blitzed 41 of his 50 dropbacks, which is an 82% rate. That is the most that Next Gen Stats has ever found in their existence. 82%. So the
Was
Vikings
that
were
was Todd
sick.
Bowles coaching the defense? Because we all know Todd Bowles loves his blitzes.
Yes, he does. It's like the whole kitchen sink. You're bringing it all, and that's exactly what they were doing. They were hoping that Zion Johnson and the rest of that offensive line was going to cave. They were hoping that they weren't going to do well and that Herbert was going to scramble or he was just going to fall to his knees. And I'll tell you what, that he did the complete opposite. That team did the complete opposite. So 82% of the time he was blitzed, and he averaged 2.26 seconds with time to throw. He has never in his career had less than 2.4 seconds, but he completed an astonishing 32 for 38 against the blitz for 307 yards and 3 touchdowns. So all of his touchdown passes were all against the blitz. So he is the first quarterback to throw for over 300 yards against the blitz, according to Next Gen Stats in their existence. So Herbert against the blitz, well, Vikings, you thought wrong. He proved you wrong big time. So he put up 307 yards just against the blitz alone. So I'm sure that's going to go on game film for the teams that are going to be playing the Chargers here next. Maybe we shouldn't blitz Herbert as often. So, but fortunately for Herbert and the Chargers, they did take a big loss when it came to their receivers. Mike Williams did tear his ACL, so he will be done for the whole year. And Keenan Allen is still a baller, put up, I want to say, 217 yards against the Vikings. So if he can stay healthy, Keenan Allen is a top 5 wide receiver in the league. So that is also a plus for Herbert. And hopefully getting Eckler back will change things. But to see Herbert put up those numbers on a Sunday is hope for the Chargers. But Justin Herbert is my player of the week for the Oregon Ducks.
All right. My NFL player of the week from Florida is Cincinnati Bengals kicker Evan McPherson. McPherson against the Los Angeles Rams was a perfect 1-for-1 on extra points and made 4 of his 5 field goals, including a 54-yarder to give the Bengals 19 points. And of course, 19 points is what the Bengals would end up with. So McPherson would end up being the team's hero, and also especially important considering that Joe Burrow struggled for the night. So, and I don't know what's up with the Bengals, man. I picked them to win the Super Bowl, and I'm still going to pick with that. I think I'm still going to go with that. I think Joe Burrow will pick it up soon, but man, they've kind of been a disappointment. But I know you, being a Steelers fan, you're obviously not too mad about that.
I am not mad at all, but I still will always worry about them. Last year they started 0-2. Guess what? They won the division. So they are
Yeah.
a scary team regardless. They look a little different, and I know living here actually in Cincinnati, the city's a little worried because they don't know if this injury is bigger than the Bengals have put on when it comes to Joe Burrow and his calf. But I will say this: the Steelers. I remember just a couple years ago, we won a playoff game because Chris Boswell. All of our points were field goals from Chris Boswell, our kicker. So kickers are very, very, very valuable to an NFL team, whether it's week 3 or if it's the playoffs or the Super Bowl, Vinatieri.
Hey, tell that to Skip Bayless.
I could say anything to Skip Bayless. It's going to go one ear out the other, and he's going to go on with some nonsense that he dreamt of, for all I know. But I will say though, Money McPherson, Evan McPherson, that is, uh, he's fun to watch. Even though he's a kicker, he's fun to watch. Seeing him come in his rookie year and all that he did to lead that team to the Super Bowl was amazing. You couldn't even walk around here without seeing either one a Joe Burrow jersey or shirt, or an Evan McPherson shirt. Money Mac, he was a legend in Cincinnati. So he's not only a legend here, he's a legend in Florida. And it sounds like they something in that drinking water and that family and that bloodline, because I hear there's another McPherson over down in Auburn. So another player to keep an eye on. I know he's not part of any of our schools. That don't matter. We're a fan of the game. So McPherson, they got that leg in that family. So as a freshman, I want to say he hit a 50, was it a 57 yarder possibly? I think it was this last weekend. So just like his big brother, kick. So he's going to be, I guarantee you here soon, there's going to be two McPhersons in the NFL. So, we have a Thursday game coming up here tomorrow, and that is between the Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers. It's a great interdivision matchup there with both teams coming in, I want to say, at 2-1. But something that I kind of just wanted to keep my eye on, and I'm sure maybe you want to do the same, is do you have any Florida Gators that are possibly playing in that game tomorrow night? And if so, who?
Yes, Matty, a few of them actually. So let's start off with the Detroit Lions. And that is linebacker Alex Anzalone and safety CJ Gardner Johnson. So let's go over their stats. Anzalone is tied for second on the team with 18 total tackles. He also has a sack and a pass defended. And also, according to NFL Next Gen Stats, he's had the eighth longest tackle of the season so far. And the longest tackle, by the way, measures, according to the actual definition, it measures the actual distance in yards a defender covered on a play to make a tackle. And he covered 65.8 yards. Now, I don't remember what game that was. I think that was the last game that the Lions played. But whenever it was, he has had the eighth longest tackle. So his question or his effort should not be should never be put in question. And then next up, we've got CJ Gardner Johnson, who is fifth on the team with 13 total tackles. 12 of those, by the way, have been solo. So the dude's been a one-man wrecking crew. And he's also got two passes defended on the season. And also with CJ Gardner Johnson, he just simply makes a secondary better, man. Just he adds so much depth to a team secondary with his tenacity and all that. So a lot of good stuff from Gardner Johnson. And then with the Packers, they've got defensive tackle TJ Slayton and linebacker Brenton Cox Jr. Now, it should be noted that Brenton Cox Jr. at the moment does not have any available stats, so I can only read Slayton's stats here. So Slayton so far for the season has got 7 total tackles, 1.5 stuffs, and a pass defended. And by the way, if you don't know what a stuff is, that's a tackle for negative yards on a running play. So pretty solid stuff there for Slayton. But yeah, those are the Florida players that are playing tomorrow for the Lions and the Packers.
Yeah, so it sounds like Florida is very well represented, and as well as Oregon. Unfortunately, though, tomorrow we do not have anyone on the Green Bay Packers, but we do have someone on the Detroit Lions, and that is none other than Penei Sewell. Penei Sewell was a first-round draft pick in 2021, drafted by the Lions at the 7th pick, and he was very, very highly recruited out of college because his capabilities on the offensive line. And this was coming right after Joe Burrow tore his ACL. And I know I said Joe Burrow and he's not on the Lions, but it was almost assumed that the Bengals for sure were going to draft him because they needed that offensive line help. And we all know the story. The Bengals end up passing on him and they drafted Jamar Chase, which appears to be the correct draft pick. Jamar Chase is a baller. But Penei Sewell, though, is as well. Don't let that fool you. Panay Sewell was a standout at offensive tackle in the University of Oregon and all of college football, especially in the year 2020. So there was a reason why he was going to be a top 10 draft pick as far as being an offensive lineman in the NFL. The Lions did draft him, and although things didn't start out as expected because they did move him around from left tackle to right tackle, kind of mix things up a bit because there is a difference. Let's be real. There is a difference between left tackle and right tackle. And I'm not talking about just because one side is left, one side is right. There is a different playing capability when it comes to that. But so far, he's in year 3. He has given up a total of 7 sacks. So it is a little different from his college career, where if I correct me if I'm wrong, if there's any fans out there, I don't believe he gave a single sack in college. So Herbert was very well protected when he was there because he had that trust, he had that faith in Sewell, and Sewell time and time again proved to be uh, the best lineman out there. So I think Sewell is going to continue to get better. I see that every time I watch him. Uh, Not often do fans watch offensive linemen, sometimes even defensive linemen, but I do. And he is a fun offensive lineman to watch because I think he is capable of being an all pro offensive tackle in the league. So that's who's representing the Oregon Ducks tomorrow night's game. But like I said when I started, this topic is it sounds like Oregon and Florida are very well represented in the NFL. And I'll tell you what, they're very valuable too. We both chose Justin Herbert and Evan McPherson as our players of the week. And if you were to take them out, those teams wouldn't have won. Cincinnati Bengals most likely wouldn't have won. Yes, there could have been another kicker, but to hit the amount of field goals that McPherson hit and where he hit him uh, is not a high probability, as well as Justin Herbert. Not too many quarterbacks are putting up 400 yards passing in a game, especially in a very high scoring game where the defenses did not really show up. So uh, they're very, very valuable. And I think without our pro players of the week, those teams would have lost. Would you not agree?
Oh, dude, absolutely. And as I said before, when McPherson made that field goal to put the Bengals up 19 points, that was quite literally the last points that Cincinnati scored. So McPherson quite literally did end up getting the game winner. He did end up being the hero for Cincinnati. So yes, absolutely.
Yeah, when you think of Cincinnati, you don't really think of the kicker right now being the hero, but he is, just as he was in those playoff games. I mean, I'll call him the hero because he did hit the game winners in those playoff games, but Joe Burrow was putting up big numbers. You had Joe Mixon, you had Jamar Chase out there, and T. Higgins, but McPherson was the hero this week. I truly believe that. But I urge you fans, college fans out there, follow your NFL, follow your players into the NFL and see how they're doing, see how valuable they are for their NFL teams. Last week, I had Christian Gonzalez on there, who is a rookie, and he is doing tremendous out there as a cornerback and as a rookie in the NFL. And not too many people could say that. When you make it to the professionals from college football, it doesn't matter how good you are in college football, you make it to the NFL, and it's a different league up there. It really is. And a lot of people don't make it. And that could be said from going to high school to college and from college to NFL. I knew many people who were the most talented people I feel like I've ever seen play the game, and they went to college and they struggled or they didn't get that chance. And that is very similar to how it is in the NFL. A lot of rookies are not starting week 1, and he is. And Christian Gonzalez has been a tremendous value for the New England Patriots. They don't have a lot of positives right now. They're in that kind of funky stage, but they have a positive with him. And so I urge you, follow your players from college to the NFL, see how they're doing because they may shock you. You may not even realize it because you're big into college, which there's nothing wrong with that, but you're not tuning in on Sunday to see how they're doing. You're just continuing on the college trail. But if you watch them, I think they'll make you happy. So go out there Sunday, watch your local game if you don't have Sunday ticket and see if there's any of your players on there from your teams. I guarantee you there are because I know come this Sunday, I'm going to be watching several Oregon Duck players in addition to watching my Steelers play. That's just how it is.
You're exactly right, Matty. And I do prefer college over the NFL, but I still enjoy watching the NFL. And to those of you who are watching, who may not have a professional team, yeah, I would encourage you to maybe pick an NFL team based on your college team. Matty and I have a friend who is a diehard Texas Tech fan who became a Kansas City Chiefs fan because of Patrick Mahomes. So maybe your NFL team is out there just based on your favorite college players.
Yeah, just because you watch NFL doesn't mean that it trumps your passion for college football. And just because they were drafted doesn't mean they're no longer an Oregon Duck. They're no longer a Florida Gator. They're always going to be an Oregon Duck. They're always going to be a Florida Gator, regardless of the NFL team they're playing for. So that's why I like to watch. I like to root for them. And yeah, you can too. Even if you're not a fan of the NFL and you bleed college football, there's still nothing wrong with that. Just continue to follow them because they're very fun to watch. So I urge you to do that. And just as David was saying, he's not even a big NFL guy. He loves college football, but he will tune in just to watch them play. So if you have not yet, folks, please hit that like, hit that subscribe button, tune in, watch us, share. Word of mouth sharing is how we we thrive, how we survive. Now, not just us. That's many podcasts out there. People who didn't have a big of a start, they don't have a big name. They started from their basement, from their living room, their bedroom, wherever it may be. Sharing helps them. It helps us. So please like this, subscribe, share, let people know these guys are doing something different because we'd really appreciate that. We're trying to think a little bit outside of the box and give you the news that you're not going to hear by tuning in to ESPN or Fox or anything like that because we all know they like to sugarcoat things. They don't like to actually give you the full and the real news nowadays. Where we're trying to do that. We're trying to give you everything that you may not hear on there. So please tune in and give us your support. We'd really appreciate that. We'd love that. And we're going to keep continuing to give you this content. We're going to continue to grow. So any ideas that you may have that you think could help us, we're all ears. We love hearing that. We love hearing feedback because that's the only way we're going to get better is by hearing our fans, hearing what you have to say. So please give us a like, give us a subscribe, even a comment. Let us know where we could get better. I know I'd appreciate that. I'm no professional. I just love sports. That's why I do this. So if you haven't yet, follow us on Twitter. Yes, it's Twitter to me. If it's X to you, then go on there and do that. My username is at Booster Matty Ice. David, go ahead and let the audience know where they can follow you at.
Yes, Twitter, you can follow me at David underscore street 17. Again, that's at David underscore street 17.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you guys. We really do. Please tune in next time. And until then, quack, quack, go Ducks.
Go Gators.